Ranks went down like grass before the scythe. Captain Albert Edwards, July 2nd, 1863. So we ended the last video with the twilight at the Round Tops. I would again have gone longer, but the video did go very long, so I decided to split it in half. So I will go over Lee's plan again. On July 2nd, 1863, Robert E. Lee decided he would have an instantaneous attack. In the South, James Longstreet would, in quote, outflank the Union line. In the center, General A.P. Hill will harass the Union line, while General Richard Ewell attacked the northern flank at the heights of Culp's Hill. Fighting had actually been going on in small skirmishes near the foot of the heights, at a water spring known as Spangler Springs. Union troops had in fact held the position, limiting the amount of water the Army of Northern Virginia could receive. The most important part of the plan is the attack are supposed to begin at the same time. But as we discussed yesterday, Longstreet had actually delayed his assault for a few hours. On the record, it was to wait for more units to arrive. The reality was he did not believe it was a good idea. But his commanding general had given him an order. Now, on the northern end, we begin today. Ewell had already made a great blunder by not pushing his assault and allowing the remnants of the First Corps to take Culp's Hill, and he did not want to repeat the mistake again. But to no one's shock, the First Corps began to build earthworks on the heights under the command of General George Greene, cutting down trees and digging in, making the hill a fortification. General Wadsworth was in command of the First Corps remnant on the heights, but during the night, General Slocum of the 12th Corps had arrived to reinforce the position, along with parts of General Sykes' 5th Corps, which was now being spread to fill in and plug in the lines. Ewell ordered his artillery to commence firing at 4 o'clock p.m., extremely delayed to Lee's early morning ambitions. Longstreet starting his attack delayed the entire offensive, so once Ewell heard the guns on the southern flank, he began his own barrage. A bit of reality of Culp's Hill was it commanded the Union supply line. The Baltimore Pike was immediately behind the ridge. So if the hill were to fall, the Union supply line would collapse as well. So into the night and early morning, Meade, in a word, jacked up the defense of the hilltop, sending the 12th Corps to support the wounded 1st Corps. Then to add an extra defense, he used elements of the 5th Corps as reserves to use whenever he needed to fill gaps. So when the fighting began on July 2nd, Meade was more concerned of Sickles' blunder and the threat of Longstreet collapsing his entire southern flank. In Meade's mind, Culp's Hill had become an impregnable fortress. Now, as someone who has been to Gettysburg more than most people possibly watching this video, I can tell you it was not an easy fight. The slopes of Culp's Hill are extremely steep, and again, they were entrenched. Ewell commenced his attack advancing directly at the heights towards Greene and Wadsworth. The Confederate infantry attempted to hold their lines together as they advanced up the hill, but the Union forces continued to fire down, literally down on the Confederates assaulting. Ewell watched as Johnson's waves continued to get pushed back. Ewell quickly sent more men as Johnson's regiments were thrown back, something that would have only be seen again during the First World War began. After wave attack and brutal hand-to-hand fighting, Virginians under Stuart had successfully broken through Slocum's lines into the heights. As the day turned to night, the coalition of the 1st, 5th, and 12th Corps finally smashed Stuart and Johnson out of their recently captured positions. The road to Washington was safe, and Ewell's corps had fared less luck than Longstreet's at the south. But this was not the last act by the Southerners this day. Lee planned an assault at Cemetery Hill using parts of A.P. Hill's corps. As we said, they were harassing the Union center, which Cemetery Hill rested in the center of. He planned to attack the Federal center throughout the day. Units from the 2nd and 11th Corps were identified across the field. So Lee astutely came to the conclusion that the 2nd and 11th were spread apart, meaning the Union center was weak at Cemetery Ridge. So with a hard enough strike, the Southerners could maybe split the Union position. So General Camden Wilcox led 2 brigades towards Cemetery Hill. General Hancock had made Cemetery Hill his headquarters and could see the advancing Southerners coming through the trees. He rode up to a regiment that was resting near the headquarters. Hancock went to the colonel, William Colville of the 1st Minnesota. Hancock asked what unit was this. Colville responded, the 1st Minnesota. Hancock then pointed down the hill at the advancing Confederates brigades, yelling, "Attack that line." Colville saluted, immediately ordering his regiment of only 262 men to fix bayonets, then charge into 2 brigades, breaking them back. Of the 262 men who made the charge, 47 walked away. Among the dead is Colonel Colville himself. Died saving the line from the relentless attack. Even Wilcox, in his report of the action, would report how it seemed victory was in the grasp until a line of infantry suddenly arrived and swept them off the heights after violent hand-to-hand fighting. As night began to fall on the battlefield, the fighting south had ceased, and the assaults on Culp's Hill will continue up until the early hours of July 3rd. Robert E. Lee was in shock. His undefeatable army of Northern Virginia, that crushed an army 3 times his size at Chancellorsville, had failed. But it is also at this time that General Jeb Stuart and his cavalry had finally arrived at Gettysburg. Now he had his final movement. The fighting on this day has, so far, been the most brutal and long. The Confederates lost thousands, as did the Union. But it is on this day, coming in from the rear, the rest of General Sedgwick's 6th Corps had finally arrived. The Union fishhook surviving meant that Federal troops now had the interior supply lines they needed to fare next few days if necessary. But that night, it is a discussion of Meade's headquarters near the Taneytown Road. Many officers believe that when the guns on Culp's Hill finally go silent, the battle will be over. The Confederates would pack up and withdraw as they did at Antietam. General Meade himself refused to believe Lee would abandon the position. Meade at last made his decision. He again moved reinforcements around the field. He knew the army was exhausted. They had been on a forced march for weeks. Many were immediately thrown into combat after that forced march, so he decided they were going to sit. He set his positions up and prepared for what was to come next. They will remain in position until there's cavalry reports leaving his movements. This day has taken the lives of not only many officers, but soldiers, but the line was held. As always, folks, thanks for watching. Tomorrow we will discuss the finale to this tale, the 3rd day and Pickett's charge, as well as the fighting at cavalry fields. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow.